Hello and welcome. It happens to be the New Year's Eve 2019, and I would like on this show to discuss the issue of exactly what the deep state is. A lot of this phraseology, you could say, has been thrown out by both those who have been supporters as well as opponents of Donald Trump. And so I think that we could explore exactly what this whole concept of the deep state really refers to. Before I begin, I would encourage people to subscribe to the station, share this video, and also check out the website that I've linked at the bottom. And that will take you to, for instance, some of my published works. If you like science fiction, check out the Destiny of Our Past, which, it's set during the era of Noah, but it has a lot to do with what's going on today. Anyway, deep state. All right, let's first begin with, essentially, you remember when the comedian George Carlin made his presentation about the big club, and where he said it's a big club, but you're not a member of it? And that refers a lot to the deep state. And also, we could go back, although it goes back further than this, but we could go back to the farewell speech that was delivered by Dwight Eisenhower at the end of his presidency, in which he said that people should be very careful about giving too much power to what he called the military-industrial complex. Now, what had happened during World War II, well, aside from the fact that the United States entered the war after the attack on Pearl Harbor, and that America, along with its allies, won the war, what had happened during that process was there was a mobilization of millions and millions of personnel. And in that process, there came to be a planning that had to go in. America had never really experienced something at this massive a scale. And everything was turned to winning the war. The entertainment industry was essentially co-opted to be able to sell the war to a public that, yes, they were very angry about Pearl Harbor, but at the same time did not really have that much enthusiasm about being involved in a major conflict with Japan and Germany. At the same time, too, the industries of the United States went into full production mode. And while much of the industrial base of Japan and Germany and many other nations was being hit with bombs, and therefore making it very difficult for them to create armament, in the case of both Germany and Japan, very few resources as well at their disposal, the United States was able to build itself from just being basically the industrial power to being this mega industrial power. Now, when the war ended, unlike World War I, which after World War I, much of the military hardware was scrapped, after World War II, the framework continued. And then there was this sense of, okay, we've defeated Japan and Germany. Oh, now there's the Russians to worry about. So you had the Cold War, and this feeling that what has to be done is maintain the military, maintain this powerful force, and make sure that never again would America, for instance, or its allies be caught with its pants down. And so this meant really that the war economy never really ended. It continued. It was just in preparation in case a big war, World War III, would come along. Now, of course, there were smaller wars, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, and that sort of thing. But this machine, so to speak, would continue and grow and expand. And within that, it still took in many different aspects of American culture. For instance, it took in think tanks that grew up. Now, think tank, for those who may not be acquainted with that, is where you get more of an academic exploration of various policy alternatives. And then these examinations will go out to the media, politicians, corporations, and so forth. Now, often these think tanks will be based around a certain theme. And most of the think tanks that exist today, for instance, have a very pro-intervention policy. America needs to be involved. There may not be this kind of unified strategy of what needs to be done as long as America is doing something. Now, on top of that, you have the media. Now, a lot of people think the media is sort of like just entertainment. I would encourage you, and I'm not going to go into this right now, maybe in a later show, I would encourage you to look into the relationship between the Pentagon and Hollywood. It's a very, very strong relationship that never actually ended after World War II. And you'd be surprised how some propaganda, hints of new technologies, and that sort of thing get placed within the entertainment apparatus. And just to kind of put it into perspective, have you ever seen a movie about aliens invading the Earth in which, I don't know, Sweden beats the aliens? No, it's always the United States that becomes victorious against the invaders. Now, there's other things. There's the intelligence communities. Now, you got to remember, a lot of these people in the intelligence communities owe their jobs and their promotions to the status quo. I mean, if peace broke out, who would need them? So, therefore, those people who will rise to the top are those who support this. We got to watch out. We got to make sure America is the hegemonic power of the world. And we don't want anything to interfere with that. And anything that does interfere, let's say you get some sort of, a libertarian politician or something comes along, you're not going to be very happy about that kind of individual or any kind of movements, be they left-wing or right-wing, that would question that as well. And then finally, you have corporations. Now, a lot of times, corporations get a bad name, they get kicked around and so forth, and I'm not going to kick around corporations. I think that the American system has worked very well. However, when these corporations, as Eisenhower warned, can basically make a lot of money off selling new weapon systems, new rockets, new everything, research into killer robots, those kinds of things. If the military is willing to give them money, they are going to go along and play the game too, because they can make a lot of money off defense contracts. I think the United States spends more money on military than maybe, I don't remember if it was the 5 next largest military budgets around the world or 10. Look it up. But it is a very immense amount of money that is generated from the taxpayer. Now, speaking of the taxpayer, this is a very interesting thing I want to point out. This whole complex relies on the regular American taxpayer. Paying taxes, generating all that money that then goes into the system. But that also relies upon them for supporting the ideals that this deep state, so to speak, promotes. And that means supporting the policies, not going out and protesting, that sort of thing. And it also relies on those people to supply the men and women for the U.S. military. So I don't think you have too many people at the very top of society that encourage their kids to go into the military. But you do have that on the other end, the people who may struggle to pay their mortgages, who have to make sure, who may not be able to afford to send their kids to college. Those are the people that you're going to need in order to keep this thing going. So anyway, the thing we have to look at is what's called groupthink. Now, groupthink is a concept you'll find in psychology in which any organization or even society, and I would say this is